Guys, we are reading Open Book by Jessica Simpson. We are on chapter 26. Almost done with the book. So this is going to be I Once Was Lost. And I'm just going to start reading. I Once Was Lost. January 2015. There is a before and an after, but I have had a hard time pinpointing when exactly things changed. As I write this book, I've been having heart-to-hearts with all my friends, and each has a different moment in which they began to worry about me. I know when I started to worry, though I kept it to myself, I was convinced I could make it work. It was after the holidays, which had been hard. Maxwell and Ace were only 3 and 2 years old. And when I hosted family gatherings, I realized that they would never know the time when their grandparents were together. Eric's parents were wonderful and had even moved out west to be closer to us. But I wanted my mom and dad to be together for my kids, like I'd had my grandparents. My parents were so enmeshed in my life and career, and when I needed them most, it felt like they'd abandoned me to start their lives over. The anxiety had so long colored the edges of my life began to take hold of me. There had been so much happening to crowd out those feelings. Trying to get pregnant, then having 2 babies under 2, a new house, and a wedding, and the Jessica Simpson collection expanded to over 30 categories, and we were at the point where we cleared $1 billion in sales. Even if I wanted to think about my parents' marriage crashing and what it meant about all I'd held as a foundation of my life, there was no time. As life calmed down, there was time. At first, the feelings would come like a chill, and the kind where you quickly rub your arms up and down to shake it off. I'd get up quickly or run my hands through my hair to pull it back right tightly, moving to push the thought away. Somebody has just walked over my grave. We used to say about those unexplained shivers of foreboding, but I knew what was buried. This feeling of being alone and scared in the dark was one I'd had since I was abused as a child. As this new loss brought me closer to the original one, when I lost my trust, I was a girl again, frozen, unable to use her voice to tell someone to stop. Thinking this darkness had sought her out because there was something wrong with her. First, I numbed the pain with a drink. As soon as I felt it creeping in, I filled out my closed gold glitter tumblers with a straw. This wasn't to hide it. I never did. But maybe to mask from myself how much I was actually drinking. I'd forget to go pick it up, and the emptiness would surprise me, like it had just evaporated. But I knew you're drinking way too much. I would think as I took the next sip of the new one. Then I started drinking in advance of those feelings, like the taking of seasickness, pill before bumping waters. And do you know what? For a while it worked. I kept it up no matter what time it was. I could be absent while in the room with my parents at gatherings. But the second my kids needed something, I would be right there, laser focused on them. It would be hangover braiding hair, making lunches, fighting to be present. We hosted more and more parties, which were still fun. I don't regret any of them. I just wish Eric and I didn't drink so much at them. We began to get disconnected. He would pick up on an energy of others, acting like he was Jim Morrison, living on his rock and roll life. I would stay in one spot while people around me passed out. I'd put blankets on them to tuck them in. I was jealous that sleep came so easily to them, but also grateful they were there. I was able to drink so much when others couldn't because I had a secret. I found a doctor. What in LA you call a rock doctor. What will help me lose the most weight? Was my very first question. It's awful to remember me saying those words, but my vanity had returned. Despite all the work I had done to accept myself, frankly, I liked how people treated me when I was skinny. An extra pound would add my vulnerability, and I was feeling fragile enough as it was because the family I'd grown up with as my rock had disintegrated. I thought if I was skinny, I was powerful. He prescribed me a stimulant at a high dosage. The stimulant kept me alert, no matter how much I drank. Alcohol is a depressant, but the two substances didn't balance each other out in my body. No, they compete in some terrible chemistry experiment on my liver. I should have passed out from all the alcohol, but my body kept going because of the stimulant. Then I would shut the whole system down when I went upstairs, and Ambin brought a runaway train to a screechy halt. I had no idea what I was doing to my body, and then I found out. I was turning 35 in July, so I planned 2 gifts to myself. A trip to St. Bart's for all my friends and partial tummy tuck. A surgery wasn't for weight loss. I weighed 107 pounds when I planned the surgery. I wanted to get rid of the stretch marks and loose skin left sagging from my back-to-back pregnancies. I was so ashamed of my body at this point that I wouldn't let Eric see me without a white t-shirt on. I had sex with it on, even showered with it on. I couldn't bear to look at myself. I need to say this. If you have stretch marks from pregnancies, I hope you can be proud of your body-created life. I was not strong enough. It touched all my insecurities, and I couldn't handle it. I planned the procedure for 2 weeks after I got back from St. Bart's, a trip I wanted to be an adults-only blowout. I hired a private jet to take 30 of us down for a week-long stay in Licenero, which is right alongside of the beautiful turquoise lagoon. I invited my mom, who had gotten engaged to her boyfriend John, so I decided not to invite my dad. Ashley stayed home because she was pregnant and due at the end of the month. Because the trip was for my friends, I spared no expense, renting and his and her yachts, jet skis. Oh my gosh, I can't even talk, guys. Sorry. Jet skis, the whole 9 yards, and then thrown in 9 more. I got my girlfriends the same glitter cups I drank from, each emboizled with her name and the number 35. I was not sober for a minute of the trip. Oh my gosh, let's just take a break. On my birthday, my assistant Stephanie got a call. It was my doctor. I have to talk to Jessica right now, he said. Stephanie said it would have to wait. It's her birthday. I am her doctor, he said. Put her on. Okay. She came and got me. He was direct. My plastic surgery may have approved me for the surgery in 2 weeks, but he would not. I'm looking at your liver levels, he said. You could die. I had to drink in my head. I sip. What? Jessica, you need to stop everything for 3 months before you can go to the surgery. Everything? That seemed somehow more defective than you could die. I was killing myself with all the drinking and pills. Okay, I said. I hung up and told my girlfriends around me what the doctor had said. I sip again. Stop, a voice said. I ignored it. I would stop when I got home in a couple days. It was my birthday after all. I told Eric we were in a sort of shared spiral, both of us in denial about how much we were drinking. I'm sure we were wasted when we talked about it. I would deal with it later, I decided. Why ruin a trip? I had lived in a state of emergency for so long that it felt comfortable. We went out that night, all of us boarding a bus to take us to the Berkeley's bar. It was a fun night, and I was able to further distract myself from what the doctor said. Eric drank, too, much tequila, and got argumentative with one of his friends. He resolved it, but on the bus back to the hotel, he started lying into me about the doctor's call. It was like he realized what it meant and wanted to shock me into taking it serious. He accused me of neglect, not so much of being a bad parent, but because a mom shouldn't be so selfish that she would risk her life. Don't leave us, he said, right there in front of my mother and my friends. He still says it was not his finest moment. When I got home, I cut down on everything, like someone cramming for a test. I disregarded what my doctor said and kept the surgery date. The morning of the operation, my mom tried to get me not to go. I had never shown her my stretch marks and skin. Mom, I said, taking off my dress in front of her. I stood there, naked, before the woman who birthed me. Let's go, she said. The surgery went fine, but I wasn't happy with the results. I still had loose skin that hung over my pants. I had a reoccurring thought. People had been so cruel to me when I was on stage at 120 pounds. What were they going to say when I raised my arm, caught in some moment where I forgot myself in the music and they could see my skin sagging from my pants? I could bank all the self-esteem in the world, but I wasn't ready to face the laugh and point cruelty again. So I scheduled a full tummy tuck for 2 months later. The surgery was more involved. There was a sense that something was going to go wrong from the let-go. Even though I stopped drinking to prepare the day of the surgery, Eric was puking his guts out because he was so nervous. He had to leave the hospital, and my mom stayed. She did not want me to do the surgery. Nobody did. Casey was, of course, Googling everything, complications. She could find a prep for the worst. The surgery took 2 hours longer than planned. Post-op, I was sent to recover at a luxury hotel near the doctor's office. I know, people call it Hollywood, but it's a thing here that folks recover from plastic surgery with aftercare services at hotels. I couldn't believe they just did the surgery and practically sent you home. I still had 2 drains of pouches to collect blood. It did not go well. I got an infection, colitis, and was vomiting so much I thought I was going to bust my certrus. My mom and Eric were so worried they had to rush me to Cedars, and I secretly stayed there for 9 days. Doctors talked seriously about me needing blood transfusion. It was so hard on Eric, who was convinced he should have talked me out of going through with the surgery. Eric loved me and any size or shape, even if I couldn't. I recovered, and yes, my stomach looked great. I felt like myself again, but I can tell you that plastic surgery does not cure what's inside. Really. It's about how you feel emotionally. And I was just as hard on myself once those stitches were out. I still had work to do. I decided that 2016 was going to be the year that I committed to my music and my songwriting. I needed to save myself, get to know myself again. I wanted to start journaling again. Pick up a pen and confront who I had become, a challenge myself to be better. I had mostly stopped when I was so tormented by John. The longer I waited, the more of the reckoning it would have become. I was in the position where I had my own studio in my house. I could pay producers and songwriters to come and work with me. This way my kids could see what their mom actually did for a living. But opening that new Mead notebook to write with other people in the room was like summoning all my ghosts, places, everyone. I was taking my memories, trying to put them to music in the room with people I had never met in my life. I know that there are songwriters who treat it like a job. For me, it's ministry. I sat on the floor of the recording studio trying to write a story of my life so that I could help others. About the heartache of a failed marriage and giving yourself over to someone who tortured you. Songwriting takes me to an honest place, and honestly, I was in the dark place. I just didn't want it until the words came out of me. Before I even knew how heartbroken I was about my parents, the words spilled out of me. Wait, I'm heartbroken, I thought. To prepare, I drank before the songwriting session, and during and then after to recover. The alcohol helped me go to a painful place, but then I started to hold me back. When I sang, it wasn't the same as when I was younger. I was scared, and fear kept me from being wholly there. I kept putting the music off, then coasted into the next year as I focused on the kids at the collection. I could be present for my children. Oh my goodness, sorry guys. It was easy to invest my time in kids and the business. As much as I was my own worst enemy, I did everything I could to present for my children. In September 2016, my father called to tell me that he had been diagnosed with prostate cancer. He'd been told that if he didn't have surgery, he had 6 months to live. So, you're having the surgery, I said, gulping with a glitter cup. I'm not sure, he said. I couldn't believe my father would consider not fighting. He was spiraling, and I didn't know how to help him. I wasn't a doctor, so all I could do was remind him what he taught me to do. To have faith and know that it's all going to be okay, but you have to fight. You can't give up. I was still recovering from losing him as a manager, but losing my father altogether was something I couldn't fathom. He set the date for the surgery. My poor mother still loved him, and I know she felt powerless. For 35 years, she'd helped him, nursing him through every cold and flu. And now, when he needed her most, he didn't want her there. I felt the pressure to take her place, to be that mother figure, a wife to my own dad. The morning of the surgery, I brought alcohol with me to the hospital, 7 a.m., and I was drinking to calm my anxiety. Ashley was there along with Jonathan and Dad's best friend, Randy. The doctor told us that during the surgery, they discovered the cancer had spread to his lymph nodes. He had stage 5 cancer. Through the anxiety, I tried to be present to take in the information. I was supposed to be filling in for my mom as he got treatment. I would relay the information to her, feeling like I was failing them both somehow by not doing enough. I realize now that when I thought I was escaping my feelings of responsibility by drinking, I was actually making things so much worse. It was a dark time, but not being silver for it. Exaggerated every problem when I just could have dealt with it head on. Still, his recovery forced the needed reconnection for me and my dad. Soon after, my doctor informed me that he could no longer prescribe me both the stimulant and the Ambien. I think he was afraid that I'd die. I had to choose for me. It was to sleep or not to sleep. It was to come to Jesus' moment where I had to ask him which controls me more, my vanity or my fear. I chose to keep the Ambien. I was terrified of not being able to hit the off switch at night. As soon as my prescription for the stimulant ran out, my drinking caught up with me. I would pass out, so I made a concentrated effort to stay with it until the kids' bedtime. I was less focused and increasingly unable to hide the effects, so I hid, staying out of the public eye as much as possible. I did take one trip, visited Nana in Texas for her 85th birthday. It was harder now for her to get around. She'd gone into a nursing home, but she didn't like it and left. Her whimper snaps, heart rumbling, even with her slowing body. Back home, she used a walker and would amble with it to the driveway, park it next to her car, and slide into the driver's seat. I drive around for an hour, she said, then come back, and the walker is right there waiting for me. I don't know how safe that is, Nana, I said, but I knew the feeling. When your words shrink, you make adjustments. My anxiety had shrunk my world to my house. When I did go out, I didn't have the sense to how clear it was that I was having issues. In late May, I went on the Ellen DeGeneres show to promote the collection, making an appearance I have never watched. I admit I drank beforehand, and I was also on steroids for the chest infection that made me hoarse. I was nervous, but I'd always been able to turn it on for the talk shows. Instead, I couldn't find Ellen's rhythm, mumbling and second-guessing everything I was saying. At first, Ellen tried to help, and then she gave up. Her blank stare at my conversational freefall was tough love. Ellen didn't say anything to me after. I awkwardly walked off the stage and took in the look on the face of my publicist and my friend Lauren. She said. Did I not do good? I asked, knowing the answer. You could have done better, she said, which is probably the most critical thing this kind woman has ever said to me. I want to say it here to Ellen and the viewers. I'm truly sorry I disrespected them by trying to make my appearance when I had no business doing so. My friend began their plans for interventions. I picture them 2 by 2, first dancing around the subject with each other, then gripping each other's arm in solitary. They felt powerless after that. Oh my gosh. Afraid that if they confronted me, I would shut them out. Lauren put together a plan of action for when I was ready, discreetly collecting the numbers of people who specialize in rehab and counseling. On my 37th birthday in July 2017, 2 years after a doctor told me my life was in danger, I had my friends over for a day-long party at my house. At the end, while my friends were all downstairs, I sat on my bed and cried. Another friend had just gone to rehab. She was a mother, and she found the strength to face her pain and anxiety instead of dosing it in alcohol and numb it. She did what I knew I needed to do. I was humbled because she chose what was best for her family. I knew I needed to stop drinking, and I couldn't. I had alcoholism in my bloodline, and I was carrying it around. Our kids were 5 and 4. How could I protect them? How could I lead them away from this and break the cycle? I prayed. which I realized I hadn't done in a long time. I had stopped taking those moments of stillness for myself. A remembered palms floated up from within me. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, I told myself. He saves those who are crushed in spirit. But if I was so broken, why did he feel so far away? He protected me my whole life, given me the light and calling to use my voice to help others. Now I couldn't face this fear in me, and I was dimming my light and hiding from the world. He had long ago told me to change. There was a tiny light still in me. Though a little flame for me to make my birthday wish on, I whispered my request, asking God for help and mercy. I wouldn't give myself. It would take 3.5 months, but God would save me so I could come home to myself. And that is the end of chapter 26, guys. Thank you guys for listening. You guys have a good day.